Hey everybody. Thank you for joining the Integra Roadshow webinar for 2018. This is the last in our series for this year, fifth of these that we've undertaken for existing clients and new prospects that we are talking to. The base of the day, or the session really, is to go through some of our thought processes to the future direction of Integra, but also the marketplaces that we operate within, support those clients within that base over the coming years. And from that, we hope that you get a good view of the future direction of Integra and what that means for the organisations that you represent. My name is Aidan Quishley. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at IBS, and I want to focus on, in the first part, and we'll cover off three elements to today, is a little about the background and in part getting a new perspective on what Integra currently holds for our existing clients, but what we're going to be going on to undertake over the coming months and years with the investments that we've kicked off already. Leading into the product vision and strategy with Damien Maron, who's our Technical Director, and then up in the end, just before we get into Q&A, on our future cloud strategy. So from perspective, there are three elements in terms of the way in which we strategize our own business and what that means for the product itself. And we line that to three interleaving cogs, the first of which is very much based around the finance industry in its own right and the changes that are taking place on an ongoing basis within it. Of finance, going back many hundreds of years into the start of double entry bookkeeping, all the way through to some of the more modern aspects of things that will, in our view, take place and take hold, like blockchain and cryptocurrencies, result in an ever-changing flux in what finance actually means. We know that from our own perspective. As a PLC, we've recently undertaken the changes to go to IFRS 15. And compliance and change is going to be and will continue to be an inherent feature within the finance industry. We therefore have to reflect that within the product set that we have. And today really is to talk through how we see some of that change reflecting through into the things that we enable you as users and investment within the Integra product set will want to use over the coming years and months going forward. Taking it a stage further, though, there are two other aspects that we consider in that interaction. That is within the public sector, where we have a good proportion of our client base, and then secondly within the private sector. If we look at the public sector in its own right, that, in the same way as finance, goes through considerable change on a regular basis. You'll all be very aware that the comprehensive spending review, which comes around every 5 years, gives fresh impetus as to the direction and the thought processes that each of the organisations that sit within that to have to respond to. We're aware of the need and desire to become more efficient and more productive over time. We're very cognizant of the fact that the back office often gets its unfair share of focus and attention in that regard. And therefore, using technology, some of that change, and more for less, or turn the resources that are already there into higher value, more strategic focused areas is really important. We look in the private sector, competitive advantage clearly is key. Gaining that one step ahead is a key part of any organisation that operates in the private space. There are several trends that we'll come on and talk about that many of the private sector organisations, ourselves included, have already invested in, and we see as the future direction in supporting that for the private sector clients that we've got and those we hope to attract going forward. Today very much is to talk through the things that I've highlighted there. It's to cover off our product vision, how it aligns to the future direction as we see it within the public and private sectors, and what it means in relation to the finance industry at large, Service developments that we have undertaken and utilising the technology that are out there, and also maximising the investment that is already in place with many of those that are on the call today, and getting some quick wins from the technologies that you've already got. So that is of this session. If we on to the next slide, this really picks up on the first of those cogs, the evolution really of change within the finance world. And we look to both our own views and thoughts in that, but also that of the industry. We know that, for example, in the cryptocurrency and blockchain, each of the 4 large accountancy firms have already stood up teams in this area, and it is a future direct travel for finance in its own right. But that said, that forms part of a much wider change that's been taking place over a number of years within finance. And KPMG's view of the world, what they're saying really is that over time, the focus has moved away from financial operations in terms of cranking the handle and ensuring that paperwork gets done into more value and working with business and organisation in defining what good looks like. And that's very much the way in which we see the future, utilising the information that's in Integra and digesting and distilling that into added value. And we've got some examples of good practice in that within our client base at the moment, particularly in the health sector, where organisations are working with clinicians and utilising the information within Integra to define within the NHS when a patient becomes a cost burden to that trust as opposed to keeping the trust in the black. We feel is going to be an overall trend going forward, whereby working with the organisation to help them make the right decisions and purchasing the right items and undertaking the right decisions at the right time is to be ever more important. So in G, what of the world is that accountancy is as much about being a strategist as it is about being an accountant. And I think from our perspective, we would generally agree with that. Our take on the world is that there are 4 key things that are really start to take effect over the coming years. The first is that IT is now going to replace a lot more human endeavour. We see that with the technologies that are coming downstream, particularly in the areas of robotics and AI, and Damien will cover some of our views as to that later on. But also the likes of SIPFA are very clear in their views that if you take the accountancy triangle and look at the bottom layer of operational function within the finance function, that can and will be and is, in all cases, being automated. To do that, organisations will have to accept that standardisation degree is going to be the norm. So our view on the back of that is that a standardised approach in certain circumstances is to be more of an accepted factor to gain benefits and gain the efficiencies. And in just the same way as we each consume services like Gmail from Google, we know that there are things that you can parameterise and change, but there are certain things that you just can't. One is that those resources can be moved and used to provide greater levels of support, and going back to the model that we've been looking at on that graph, working around what good looks like from a financial performance perspective and working with stakeholders within an organisation, whether that be public or private, to help the right decisions to be made and get that improvement operational performance within an organisation. That means that there is going to be greater levels of stakeholder management involved, but also finance becoming much more of a people business as opposed to reporting and making sure that the wheels are turning. So from our perspective, that first cog, the finance industry, when you look at the layers of what technology is enabling and providing, alongside the direction of travel and the likes of cryptocurrencies and blockchain, there is, again, another shift in what's going to happen over the coming years. If we distill that into how we respond as IB Solutions to that challenge, who is managed in some of these areas, we absolutely believe that accountancy will be cloud-based. The whole world has taken a shift over the last years to move to the cloud wholesale. Clearly, we've been here before with the era of mainframe, but I think we're at a different point now. The two, in my view, are actually linked. That is that accountancy will harness the power of big data and non-traditional financial information. And I think a good example of this is the health and social care agenda, where traditionally organisations in local authorities or health or external social care providers will individually be looking at their own data sets to try and make the right informed decisions. Now more than ever, moving forward, increasingly so, those data sets will start to be pooled so that decisions can be made for the wider interest of what good looks like for the citizen, and in a lot of cases, and putting the citizen at the heart of the decision-making process. That obviously has an impact in terms of how organisations talk to each other, but how the technologies that they have are able to communicate to other data sets. And part of our thinking and strategy moving forward is to open up Integra through the use of APIs to other data sets so that that collaboration can really take hold and support the change that is taking place within certainly public sector and to a degree within the private sector as well. Clear that efficiency has to take priority over everything, but that efficiency and productivity agenda is very key to our thought process. We have underway at the moment certain trials around the use of AI, robotics as a business, and we the utilization of those technologies will only increase. What leads to that clearly is in the same way that there was moved to cloud, is that there will be a greater focus around mobility and the ability to use Integra where it's right, wherever you may be. Will be a key thing going forward. And I guess underpinning all of that is our view the role of accountancy will need to change. I've highlighted a couple of areas. You guys are at the coalface, and I'm sure you'll be aware of many other things that you believe will have to take hold over the coming years. It really wraps up into in our direction of travel for Integra. We've been working over the last number of years. We've invested in excess of £1 million on where we currently see the product set. The current release of Integra, we've changed the naming convention to become Integra Centros. The reason for that is the investment to date has got us to a key point in the evolution of Integra. What it does is to open up the platform to all of the things that I've highlighted already, and we'll go on to talk about in a bit more detail shortly. So it's much more the next in line of releases of the Integra product suite. It's going to open up the ability to operate in the cloud. We're focusing very heavily on AI and robotics and what that means enables for our client base. We open up the platform to greater levels of analytics and management information. We will very heavily focus on productivity and efficiency gains, use of some of the capability that's already within the product set to open that capability for our clients. We will undertake investment around refreshing the way our users engage with the product, and it's now looking at a whole series of activity around the user interface and also the user experience, as clearly, again, the world is looking now to get the most from a product and the way in which that is utilised by the user base. And mobility. What this means is that Integra moving forward is to be fundamentally geared around collaboration, both with the organisation and with other organisations that you may be working with, geared around insight and providing the basis to inform decisions, utilising the technology, and enabling you to avoid having to manually crank the handle and using Excel for all manner of activity. It's around performance improvement within an organisation and fundamentally based around a more accessible platform at a technology level and a user level. that means then is that we're going to be, as a business, spend time working through data warehousing and dashboarding. Some of that capability already exists, and we're very happy to talk to people about how they can utilize what is already there. Organizational simplification, and there's many good examples of how focusing on that and utilizing technology can benefit. One of the more extreme examples, everyone will be aware, I'm sure, of the chain in America. They looked at processes within their organization. Everything on a scale here, but they had something like 1,800 processes, and through the process of elimination managed to reduce those to 200, less than 200 in fact. We and robotics, we have invested heavily in a robotics platform, Blue Prism, the largest deployment in the UK of that in one of our partnerships, the O2 partnership, which has freed up time to actually spend in talking with the customers who have got more complex requirements, managing those so that we can improve customer satisfaction. That technology is applicable across the piece within finance, and we're using it within our own finance function to ensure that we can take greater levels of productivity. With technology that's available already, some of our clients are very heavily invested in our eForms product and are using that to automate workflows. Those that don't do that, it's a great way of, again, simplifying, streamlining and enabling the business at large to interact with the finance department at an automated level and reduce the involvement at a human being basis. We'll look at technologies, and we'll come on to talk about our cognitive services, the user experience and the skills that Integra is going to have to support. We know that the world is changing. We know that accountancy is now more than ever coming down to strategy, enabling new things to take place. So that's the areas that we'll talk about shortly. One of the things that we've asked in each of the road shows that we've undertaken today, we've done 3 in the UK and 1 in Ireland, is to get your feedback. You'll be using Integra day in, day out. You're also at the front of the in terms of understanding what the public and private sector is looking for. So we've got some feedback forms that you can fill out via a link that we've issued later on, and there's an email address here if you'd like to communicate in a little detail. But we really appreciate your views of the questions. So how is your finance function changing? Have we got it right? Are there other things that you'd like to see us thinking about? Are you transforming your department over the medium to long term? What technology would bring sustainable benefit? Is there anything else that you can think of that we need to be working through as an organisation? I mentioned robotics, and we'll come on to examples of how we're looking at that and AI. But do you view that as a mechanism that can drive efficiency within organisations? Given free rein, what would you add to Integra to support some of the more strategic or operational aspects that you're thinking about over the medium to long term? So it's very much a two-way piece. We'll come on to some questions later on. That's the sort of opening part for today. I'd now like to hand over to Damien, who will talk through the good part, really, the innovation pipeline for Integra over the coming years.
Thanks, Aidan. As I said, I'm Damien Moran. I'm Technical Director for Capital IBS. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time today just talking through what we've been doing during 2018 so far, what the plans are for the remainder of the year and on into 2019. So, really, H1 been about a number of things, tidying up some of the work we needed to do in multi-company, multi-tenancy, the Centros product, as I mentioned. We'll talk about a little bit more detail on it, some of the other bits and pieces we've achieved, and then into the more exciting stuff, the work that we have planned for the remainder of this year, and the stuff that we can integrate into the product set to leverage some of the flexibility, some of the benefits that I mentioned previously. What did we actually do in H1? The biggest thing that we've been working on, and for any of our existing customers, you probably well know we've been working on this for about 18 months, is the investment piece into the multi-company, multi-tenancy product, which is now known as the Integra Centros product. The reality behind this is that this has been a very big investment for us. It has brought out from very much a product which was designed to be installed on premise originally. We do some bureau hosting of that, but it opens up the cloud deployment model, which is where the significant strategic objective for us has been. Today we can deploy Integra in a cloud environment. Aidan will be talking a little bit later on about the services we're going to be offering around that, but it will for larger customers who operate multiple Integra implementations on behalf of some of their customers to do that on a much more balanced basis, making more leverage, more utilization of the infrastructure platforms they deploy it on, doing all of that in a significantly better return on investment. At this stage, we have completed the vast majority of ledgers that are out there in the marketplace in Integra. They've been dusted through play, and actually are now deployed in one aerodopter site at this moment. And also, we'll come to a little bit more about the education business within Capita and how they've taken the Centros product and have started to roll that out to their marketplace. But we have the adopter in this product. The original ambition was to bring this live before the end of the year. The reality is that the testing has done so well that this customer wants to bring this live by the end of October. So this is the current plan. By the end of October, we'll also be putting this product on general release. So new customers coming on board at the end of October will automatically go on to this product, and we'll be working with the existing customer base to plan a number of, an upgrade to them over the next couple of years, just to suit how we want to roll this product out. A significant investment in this product in intercompany postings. How, if you're involved if you have the type of organizational structure that's a lot of intercompany postings, this is going to significantly improve how you do that and the reporting ability you have, indeed the overall view you have of all your companies from a centralized position. Multi-company position, for anyone who uses multi-company today, has been completely standardized across all the ledgers. So now you will have one single view of a company structure across all ledgers, across all of your businesses, which will make it significantly easier to view your overall holistic position across all your businesses. One of the things I mentioned, we have 1 or 2 early adopters who are using this software today. We are looking at doing this on a controlled rollout. So if you're interested in taking part and would like to put a hand up in terms of helping us roll this product, move to a full release edition, definitely we're very much interested in bringing you on board and understand how we can work with you to implement Centros in your site. I've got a number of supports that are available and help you do that. And if you contact any of your account managers, they can discuss what's appropriate to you and how we can support you moving forward in that vision. G4 this year has been a significant topic on everybody's agenda. It's meant to your business, the asks that has brought upon, how you've shaped your business to be able to answer information requests, etc. And we believe we've done something a bit unique in this space, insofar as we are probably one of the only financial systems who have taken towards GDPR to the core of the product. So in Integra, we made the decision that we were going to fully adopt GDPR and facilitate what you need to do in being able to answer GDPR requests, etc. So what have we done? Well, within Integra, the latest version of Integra allows you at its core to define what your data subjects might be. And they would be around areas such as your customers, your suppliers, and indeed your employees. We need to define where personal identifiable information is in those subject areas, and we need to define data retention periods. And this is very specifically saying, for example, in data that I would store about an employee to do with expenses, for example, there's bits of information which we have to retain in order to be able to comply with legislation, in order to retain for 7 years, etc. But there's a piece of information we don't necessarily have to retain. That might be an employee name, it might be bank account information, it might be the mobile phone number. We allow you to define what those pieces of information are, how you want to retain them after that employee has left the business. We then allow you to extensive facilities in the system at an administrative level, obviously, to anonymise that data should you so wish. We won't allow removal of that data because of financial reasons, etc., auditable reasons. We need you to be able to report on the payments that were made, etc. But we remove, we anonymise the personal data that's there so that it can be replaced with asterisks or whatever you decide is appropriate to your organisation. That's really improved in the system is the ability to report on that. So, in terms of data subject requests, an employee, for example, has left your employment and they want to be able to understand where you've got data stored about them, whether that's anonymised or not. We've got reporting capabilities, extensive reporting capabilities with Integra. From an Integra perspective, you can run those reports, understand where that personal information is stored and where it is in the life cycle of your data retention, whether it's still there visible to the appropriate resources, whether it's anonymised, or whether after a period of time it has actually been removed, archived, etc. So all that's built in using a couple of that we've created within the Integra ledgers, but also we've got a national information asset register, which created with just more standalone, which enables you to do pretty much what I've just described, but not just for Integra, but across any data repository you might have in your organisation. And that's taking, what's done on Integra and rolled it out to say, how can I actually use that same ability to record where I have data stored across all the data repositories in my organisation and define who has access to those data repositories and on what basis they have access to. Significant benefits to you as an entity on that. Again, if somebody leaves your employment, to be able to understand very quickly what the person had access to, not just within Integra, but across all the different repositories that you have, and what you need to do, and how you can, create scripts to shut down that employee's access now that they've left the employment. So, facilitates you hugely in being able to report on data access requests where information exists across all of the data repositories in your organisation. So we've got very extensive reporting capabilities, and anybody who still hasn't locked down this area particularly well, we'd be very interested in talking to you about what we can offer in that space. Of automation of QA for us is really the heart of what we've adopted for our continuous improvement process. Some of you in the past, would be aware that the rollout of some of the previous versions of Integra in the distant past have not been where we wanted to, where we wouldn't want it to be. And really, the reason for that is, we've grown the product immensely over the last number of years. And to give an example, to do a regression test of one of the modules within Integra, and there are upwards of 50 modules within Integra, one regression test in something like purchasing. To do it in a manual process, which we've been doing over the last number of years, takes one person about 3 months' worth of effort just to complete that. It's a huge ask. A number of years ago, we recognised that just couldn't continue, wasn't sustainable. We approached the investment team within Capita. We secured investment for a number of years' worth of work in this space. We've put a dedicated team together, and we're probably in year 2 of the year rollout of this process. So what does that actually mean? So we've brought in a number of external consultants that helped us identify the areas that we really need to focus on, and we're getting the most questions, queries, and support issues for people who are a lot of queries to our help desk. We've analysed that at a huge extent and understood the top 4 areas that we need to focus on this path of Q automation. So all that is, translated into a roadmap for us, and we're going through those roadmaps for all of our core ledgers. So by the time we complete this process, all of our ledgers, we have the top four areas, significant areas, that we want to focus on for this pass. We believe that will cover off somewhere between 70 to 80% of support questions we are currently getting today and have got over the last 3 to 4 years. That means as we roll this out, our developers check in code overnight. That code runs through our DevOps environment. That DevOps basically builds a version of the product. That's deployed to our QA environment. It's then deployed to a number of different test beds, a test farm that we've created. There are upwards of 36 different environments in there. That means that we've got different scenarios depending on whether our customer potentially would be using Oracle, SQL Server, what version of the operating system they're using, what version of the browser they're using. We've tried combinations of all of those. And that build, the software is essentially deployed overnight into each of those environments, whereupon the regression test pack kicks in and it runs through the thousands of tests that we're building up day in, day out, and the software overnight into each one of those. Generally, on a heavy-duty ledger like purchasing, we have got the 3-month manual test process down to about 2 hours of testing overnight. So you can imagine when our developers come in the next day, we have a significant amount of reports to say all of the test work we've done, whether it's passed, failed, anything that we've done in the code in the last 24 hours, has that created a regression issue in something we weren't expecting it would. The end result is that the Ceros product is the first product to be able to take advantage of this. It's not a complete task. We are rolling out as well. We see from the slide up there, we have completed some of the more heavy-duty ledgers. E-Series and invoice approval are just completing now. And nominal ledger and sales ledger have actually kicked off, and we're creating the test scenarios today for it, and we will have those completed by the end of the year. We will continue to roll out. But it's really to say we have a significant investment program ongoing here. It's at the heart of everything we do to continuously improve the quality of the product and make sure that the Centros product that we are rolling out today takes advantage of this newfound investment and our significant view that quality should be at the heart of everything we do going forward. Another area worth mentioning, while it doesn't directly impact into our customers today, is within Capita, the larger family of Capita, we've got a number of other portfolios of products. One of those is the education market, and some of you may have heard of the Capita SIMS product. So it's a schools information management system. One of the areas in that portfolio of products is a finance system, and that finance system is used by thousands of schools across the UK today. About 18 months ago, we probably worked with our Capita sister companies to understand where they were going in the journey and what we could do to help them. So at an overall strategic level, the decision was made not to rewrite the Capita SIMS product, but actually to use Integra to actually achieve all of the functional elements that they wanted to achieve for their customers. We went probably about 12 months worth of specific investment for that marketplace. It really was about creating elements of Integra which suited the education team's requirements, the schools team's requirements. Some of the schools, multi-trusts that they work with are very large, and they've got dedicated finance teams which are the equivalent or as big as any of our customers in the dedicated Integra product, but some are quite small, and they've got the school secretary whose day-to-day responsibility includes a hell of a lot of different things, including the finance task and keying up invoices, etc. So we want to ensure we had a product which is capable of hitting all for the marketplace that they intend to deploy this into. That product has been created and it's available within the Integra Things badged as SIMS Finance, and it's been sold today. We have a rollout program in place. They have a prototype, or not a prototype, but really an early adopter program underway since the beginning of September. I think today there are somewhere between 55 and 65 customers in the education space using the Integra Centros product, and that's growing as time moves on. The initial target 1,300 multi-academy trusts. Longer term, there are 16,000 customers in the education space in the UK that this can deploy to, and we're continuing to work with the CASIMS team to make sure that that happens. The reason for mentioning it today is just to give you some bit of assurity that we are working with a number of different capital partners, and Integra Centros is the product of choice for everything we do going forward in finance, in Integra, within some capital at a much larger level. Now that rolls forward to the investment that we're going to talk about in a minute. And obviously the more customers we have using the Integra Centros product, would be in the badged and SIMS finance or more other initiatives we're working on, which we'll talk about at some of the future roadshows. All creates a great demand for the product that we have today, and creates a huge amount of investment space for us to look forward to the investment within capital, to look for investment in place which hits a huge amount of capital customers, not just in specific customers. So, I mean, what investment are we looking for today and going forward? So, really goes out into about 6 different teams of investment we continue to work on. And they are a space of UX and mobile rollout, interoperability via extended API libraries, making tax digital, robotics that I mentioned before. In that space, and a couple of other things we'll talk about in a moment, continuing our journey on DevOps and QA automation, and also the BAU stuff that we need to do, legislative changes, PIOs, supporting user groups, making sure that we continue to do the day-to-day stuff that we need to do to keep our customer base happy. All of that will be taken not by ourselves, but in enabling the product to work with a number of strategic partners that we have, and partners that today we don't know we have. But in you, really where we are today is about opening up the possibilities of what you can do with the Integra product. I'll talk a lot more about our vision for our cloud, but as we see it going forward, Integra in the cloud will be at the heart of every organization we work with. I want to absolutely enable you to use the Integra product as an enabler to do anything that you need to do within your organization. The name itself, Integra Centros, is play on the fact that we want Integra to be the center of your organization to enable you to achieve what you need to do, what you need to do using Integra to do that. All of that, a couple of things that we're sticking by, to improve the product, to continue to invest in the product, and to be more innovative. What we've done today and heretofore have been about changing the back end of Integra, making sure it's strong, robust, future-proof, and achieves what we need it to achieve, and is capable of being rolled out in cloud environment. More importantly, straight from the CEO right through to every one of our developers, we have a mission to be able to delight our customers, to make sure that the product we're rolling out is robust, has the QA to the level we expect it to be, and bring forward the innovative functionality that we want to be able to make sure we delight our customers, the customers that we have today, the customers that we would hope will just over the next 6-12 months, that we can bring the product to achieve what they wanted to achieve going forward and be part of their strategic vision. So I mentioned UI and UX. What are we doing today, and what is the vision? So it's not just a lick of paint on Integra. One of the things we will be doing is an extensive review of every part of Integra. Yes, there will be a different code scheme. Yes, there will be probably different look and feel to your landing page, your log-on page, etc. But it'll end there. Fundamentally, we want to change the UX and how it happens that you engage with the product. Some of that, where appropriate, will be via mobile. We need to look extensively at the product and where appropriate to roll out to multiple different interface platforms. We will be doing that. But the UX experience is very different for different types of users that we have, and it's different for different categories of customers that we have, depending on how complex an organization you have. Working, with a number of different partners to achieve this. So not only from a design and style perspective, we'll be looking at examples. But from a user experience, we'll be prototyping up different approaches to the most used workflows and areas within Integra. So what does that mean? So the partners that we're working with, we've got opportunities to use extensive UX laboratories. And what that means is essentially we'll be looking for volunteers for our customer base to become almost guinea pigs in the UI and UX experience. We'll be creating different prototypes which will be shown, allow customers to play with the different styles, play with the different workflows, understand how that works for them and how they actually engage with it. Some of the laboratories that I mentioned, and while the customers continue to engage and play with the product prototypes in that space, we've got very significant scientific people working in rooms and close by or watching for how those prototypes respond and how people engage with them. And ultimately, the view is that we will be able to create the best product in our market space using the best customer interaction. So that's an ongoing process for us. We started that journey. We are asking people who want to be involved in that to please put your hand up and work with us and help us engage and help us create the best product that we can in the marketplace. Moving forward, we mentioned Integra at the heart of your organization, and one of the ways we're achieving this is through APIs. Traditionally, Integra has been quite closed down insofar as the areas of functionality were enabled to be accessed from third-party products. So we're going to change that going forward, and it's right to change that. There's a huge amount of data that is very valuable to your organization that can be opened up to the rest of your organization, to different third-party products. So what does this mean? Extensively, we're creating a library of APIs to enable you to do things with Integra and to do things with the data that exists within Integra. Now, via different third-party products or via reporting tools that you already have, you might want to take advantage of that. Ultimately, the data potential of what we have is key to what we're doing here. Whether you want to use predictive analytics, large-scale reporting capabilities, but accessing the data that you have will be opened up via a library of different APIs. Also, if you've got operational systems will benefit from real-time data injection into Integra, that will be something you'll be capable of using going forward. One of the main benefits for this to you, if you're an organization that creates a lot of transactions and maybe hits performance bottlenecks at certain times of the year or month, the creation of these APIs will allow us to take advantage of the elasticity that is there within the cloud environment that we're working with to be able to scale performance, on-demand resource allocation where and when you need it. This investment in APIs will enable us to appropriately apply the performance that's needed to your environment as you need it to make Integra a lot more friendly and efficient in terms of the resources that it demands. Make digital is obviously a significant, important area you need to comply with going forward. So we know from next April, most of our customers and most of our potential customers will have to interact from a electronic perspective with revenue and customs. So we're creating functionality that will be available to you optionally within Integra, which allows the community with our revenue customers to be far easier. So what does that mean? Essentially, within some of the sub-ledgers, say ledger, cash, purchasing, we're going to create capture to enable us to capture the summary data, that position at the end of each month. Within the subscription programs that we've created, you'll be able to review that carried information. You will be able to amend it, change it at a transactional basis. So if you change it, you've got to give reasons and then transaction support as to why you're changing it from. And maybe because you've got other systems that you need to cognizance of, or you need to make adjustments for. But ultimately, what it will enable you to do is to capture a point in time and submit the 9 pieces of information that HMRC expects you to submit electronically, and to understand that that's gone in, has been accepted with no errors into HMRC, and to timestamp that. And then in the future, if you need to amend it, you can, using the rules and regulations that exist. But it's really one point of reference for all your VAT submissions. HMRC will be capable of being done through this optional module that we are currently creating today. We're working with HMRC very closely. No matter what we've done is we're starting to prove and is recognised as being supported by HMRC going forward. So Aidan mentioned earlier the future of the ERP, and we're looking to beyond what we currently work with and currently understand as the workspace of today. Garner believes that by 2020, automation and robotics will account for up 65% what's currently done today manually will be catered for by those tools. Most people are at different levels of a journey in that space. So they're at the very start. Some people are moving on. If you look at the slide that's there, it illustrates a journey that most people go on from the most basic RDA robotic desktop automation, which is essentially scripting of capability at your desktop today. Moving forward in that journey right to the end through a full-blown cognitive services capability, there are various layers that you can go through. And RPA involves injecting some level of automation at the back end, not at the desktop end. And what we want to do is to make sure that Integra is there to help you as you step through this journey. Make sure we've got the tools and the capabilities, either of it with what we've created ourselves or with APIs, with gateways that we created to open up third-party products to allow you to achieve the efficiencies and the savings that you need today. If we go forward, what do we mean by all of that? So our view is that in the future, and we're working on this stuff today, Integra will have a library of cognitive services that will enable you to achieve the goals that we just spoke about. So what does that mean? So robotics, essentially that means opening up capabilities within the Integra product, APIs to gateways, to enable you to support the RPA or DA or other robotics product of your choice. Make sure that what you want to achieve, you can achieve using Integra. And that will be different depending on your organization and what you want to achieve. Whether it's replacing all of the manual input that you might have in invoice registration today with bots that sit at the background, take that information, automatically feed in, register, and ultimately work towards paying that, or send its way to different workflows depending on what's coming in. All of that is capable of being done today. And if you have a vision as to what you would be or what you're trying to achieve in your organization, come talk to us about that today. In the adaptive responsive and mobile area, Aidan mentioned this earlier, our vision is that, where it's appropriate, Integra should be capable of being used where you want it to be used. Whether it's on a desktop, whether on a mobile phone, whether it's on a tablet. And part of the output on the UI UX review and re-engineering that we're doing in that space will be to give us that flexibility. That Integra will respond to where you want it to respond to. Whether that's at one of your senior management level, prices on the fly, whatever it might be, we want to be able to make sure that the product complies to where it needs to do. Move forward into the whole area of robotic, AI, and how you might want to achieve that, and what you might want to achieve in your organization. The first point of contact usually is with types of chatbots and that type of thing. So what we're doing is working very closely with Microsoft to use our natural language processing engines and their bot and AI capability to be able to create a whole layer that will exist within Integra to interject AI capability where you might want to do so. Those people, that might be, basic chatbots. How do you deploy chatbots in your organization to save resources and free up human people who are work on facilities, functionality today, or services today that can be replaced by AI and robotics. One of the simplest examples that, a lot of the organizations we work with have desks, have call centers, and maybe the top 15, 20% of questions that come via that call center could actually be created, or could actually be eliminated by the intelligent use of chatbots, and make sure that there is an automated response to the questions that people are injecting through those call centers today. Now, you get that right through to its conclusion. That's where we are today. In those chatbots, you can put on speech engines, whatever the speech engine that your customer may choose to work with, whether it's Siri, Cortana, your Google Assistant, etc., and ultimately have capability that your end customers could communicate via Integra, via your organization, asking questions via a chatbot, via a voice assistant, and ultimately getting intelligent and responsive answers to those questions back to them. The capability we're talking about is all self-learning. In the future, we'll hope to demonstrate some of this before the end of the year at the AGM, so please go ahead and put your spots or that. But the capability we're talking about will enable you, as users of Integra, to create a series of questions. Questions can be answered via chatbots, via speech engines, etc. They're intelligent questions that you can make sure that the Integra intelligence assistant behind the scenes can learn from. So today, if you're seeing 50, 70% of the questions that you have to be answered automatically before maybe the chatbot hands over to a real human, if you're maybe getting 40, 50% of questions that can be answered, you can see at a dashboard level, you can see what questions are, you can understand that we're all supposed to be intelligent humans, you can understand what they actually really meant by those questions, and you can point those to a series of intents that we would create. Ultimately, any of those questions point to a whole library of intents that we create, which means we know that the real intention of this question was this. We could code to answer those questions. So you have the capability of pointing the questions that are asked to some of those intents and being able to satisfy what comes through those questions, and ultimately the engine learn in the future. So today, if you've got a question that's been asked by quite a number of people, and the Integra intelligence engine couldn't answer those, you have to say, okay, I know what that really meant, and point out to say, over there, that's the real intent. So in the future, not only will anyone who asks a direct question, but the Microsoft intelligence engines behind it, what we actually use, we're able to determine the probability that the question that's been asked now really means, the very probability that it means the question that you just pointed to a certain intent, and therefore being able to make the Integra engine learns going forward. And when you train this, the more you work with it, the more intelligent it becomes, the more you can actually free up resources to do other more important things. So for those of you who are not quite sure what a chatbot means, one very simple example that's meant to us. We've got maybe people in your finance team who spend a large amount of time answering questions about suppliers. Where is my invoice? Has it been paid? Have you received my invoice? May have been paid when I get payment to, etc., etc. What's the status of the invoice? So, for example, we've given there a very simple chatbot, which you could do via your phone, your tablet, your desktop, or even through a voice engine, if that's enabled, would be to log on to a certain area. The human will interact with it as you would. This is becoming more common. People are interacting with their mobile phone providers, with their banks for certain questions. In this example, they're asking, can you tell me if you've got invoice APC 1234 and has it been paid? Intelligence engine in Integra will know that and understand really what you're asking is, can you give me a status update on this particular invoice, a supplier invoice? So we can dip into the code, we can dip into the data, retrieve what we need to retrieve, and put that back into a response that's appropriate for this mechanism, whether it's a report, whether it's a graphic, or just an in-type answer we can provide the answer to. We then say, has this customer been satisfied with this response? If they've nothing else to do, we can come back and close the support issue. If you've got that repeated many times over many suppliers over a couple of days would be a very simple automated response, and that's most simplistic to automate that area and save human involvement. I'm back to Aidan, who's going to talk a little bit about our cloud offering.
Thanks, Aidan. I'll cover off the basis of our cloud really, and what it's going to open up. I mentioned earlier on that cloud is now at the centre of the latest version of Integra Centros. We, an organisation, have for many years offered a version of cloud through a private cloud infrastructure that a good number of our clients have taken advantage of. Clearly, we also supported clients where they wanted an on-premise deployment as well. We've reached a point now where a couple of things have taken place. Cloud technology in its own right is very mature, and there are multiple instances of it being deployed very successfully both across the public and the private sector. But more importantly, to a degree within the public sector space, is its adoption, acceptance, and insecure. That has historically been an indicator, and something that I'll come on to in a minute. Last number of years, we've been on a journey. Going back to 2013, the UK government undertook a cloud-first approach. I think it's fair to say that that has taken some time to come into full effect. There are organisations out there that would still prefer to manage their infrastructure on site. What comes with that is, that's fine, but there is a growing question of why would you want to. There are a considerable number of benefits in buying into capability that gives you greater flexibility, great governance, greater levels of elasticity, particularly at peak periods like year-end. And we've got to a point now where that acceptance has got to a critical mass in our view. And part of that was that patient data this year was considered safe to be utilised within the public cloud environment, and NHS Digital confirmed that. Indeed, the UK Parliament undertook to transfer and migrate its email service to Microsoft Cloud environment. So they're significant changes, and ones that we see will enable others to find, to a greater or lesser extent, safety in numbers. From our perspective, it does actually open up greater levels of capability with which we are linking all of the new generation of services that we're talking about today, such as the cognitive services we've just been covering. If we look at that in a little bit more detail, we'll take a greater level of digital transformation through cloud. We can offer better governance. We can offer better security. Economies of scale exist. We're operating in an environment where organisations such as Microsoft, who we've partnered with in this space, are able to invest very heavily in significant infrastructure deployments that enable users like ourselves and ultimately you guys into that. Better analytics. Utilization of cloud means that we can look at usage trends and make things available that previously we wouldn't have been able to. I spoke about peak periods. It is possible through a public cloud environment to be able to very quickly spin up capacity for peak periods. That is achievable in a private cloud environment, but it's costly, and in most cases cost prohibitive to any of the environments that we currently support. So there are distinct enablers that cloud provides over and above what we have now that mean that they come at a price point that previously wasn't possible. We take that a stage further. Mobility becomes easier to undertake. More information is made available more quickly to more users, and particularly if we're talking about the collaboration space, that whole piece opens up a door to greater potential. More capable technology can be deployed. Again, economies of scale kick in to a great extent, and it provides that agility that we know can be an inhibitor in certain instances, and so you end up getting things done faster because the processing power, the raw capability, is inherently there. The thing that we have seen, and that the industry has seen, and the adoption of cloud. Lack of budget has been an issue in the past. Legacy overs around people wanting to hold on to IT, security and skill sets. Things aren't going to change overnight, we accept, but what we hope to show and demonstrate is that the utilisation of cloud at the core of everything does actually provide greater potential than there ever has been before, and it's adopted at the very highest level within government, being secure, and that is a significant development for us all. So we're utilising that as a basis to our future roadmap. Forward to the next generation, really, of Integra. It is going to be powered by Microsoft Azure. As an organisation, Capita has now entered into a strategic partnership with Microsoft that gives us access to a whole range of capability. It will provide resource on demand. It will remove some of the areas that will be inherent with a private cloud infrastructure, such as the hot and cold standby for DR. We can offer things like same-day recovery now, which previously would have been, again, doable but very costly. And it will form part of our fundamental future operating model that we will roll out going forward. So this is a program of activity that we'll undertake over a period of time. Damien mentioned we are looking for early adopters. It's already started with the deployment of the Sims Finance solution out of the market, and the ramp-up in that is significant. And we will be looking into the back end of this year and early next year to get those early adopters from the Integra base rolled into this, which will work with you around how the CapEx and OpEx models benefit you over a longer period of time. But certainly for us, this is the future. It does open up doors, and we would hope that everyone can see the benefit of that in the longer term. So a very quick, I'm conscious of time, so a very quick view of our cloud approach. That concludes the formal part of today, and we've really got to the point of asking or answering any questions that you may have as a result of the stream that we've had. We have had some that have come in the time that we've been talking. The first of which will probably be Damien. So, it is, could you explain more about the cognitive services and how this could help the finance function in the future?
Sure, Aidan, thank you. So, probably, as I kind of mentioned before, the vision is that we will have a library of function capability within Integra in order to be able to make sure that Integra is at the heart of your organisation, make sure that it can take advantage of the advanced technology, make sure it's there to be able to support your organisation, and particularly your finance team, in able to save human effort and involvement where possible. So no, there's a towards efficiency. We want to be able to make sure that Integra supports that, and if it's a thing that you believe in your organisation, you know, you save real-time human effort by implementing one or more of the capabilities we've spoken about today, whether it's robotics, RPA, or mobile responsive behaviour, chatbots, etc. We want to ensure that Integra is there at the heart and being able to support that. So, you know, anybody who has aspirations to implement some of these technologies, anyone who believes there are opportunities within your organisation to make some savings, to implement some of these things, then please do give us a shout, and we would be more than happy to talk about what we're doing at a much lower level and understand how you can plug in those issues that you might be working on in the Integra Cognitive Services Library we actually are creating today.
Okay, Sammy, we've had another couple of questions come in. So the next one on this is, would we be able to spend some time looking at how our organisation can utilise some of these developments? The short answer to that is yes, we would be able to. One of the things that we're keen on really undertaking is getting a closer feel for how organisations are developing and moving forward strategically and operationally. We're very conscious that there's been a good number of years through all of the CSR changes and the cost-saving initiatives for transformation, that agenda isn't going to stop, and if there are things that we can support through our account management teams, then we will do so. If you can reach out either through the email address that we will flash up on the screen or the feedback forms, or just at your account manager, then absolutely we will support that. Another one come in around the G Suite as well. So how would Integra work with the G Suite rather than Microsoft?
Okay, well, I mentioned our involvement with Microsoft earlier was really around the back end that we're using for automation in terms of AI. It's tying ourselves to any particular provider of this type functionality, such as your spreadsheet provider, your word processing capability. So we're not tied to any one of those. We have implemented functionality to help some of our customers in the space. So I think the best thing probably for this one is if you get in touch with your account manager and with the technical team, we can work closely with you to understand what exactly you're trying to achieve. Is it in terms of file sharing? Is it in terms of exporting to your spread capability within G Suite? With exactly what it is, we can help you with it. But we're not tied to any one provider in that space.
We've got a question that's come in around robotics and just and mentioned earlier on that we as an organisation already use the Blue Prism technology set. That's one of the more well-known technology sets that's out there. There are others, clearly. We've got about 160 bots working on that O2 partnership. They are rebuilding and taking a lot of functions and providing answers directly to clients. Beyond that, we have deployed the same technology within our own finance department to manage some of the operational tasks. So it's utilising that technology within the client environment that we'll be looking to work with our existing client base on over the next coming number of years. The next question that we've got in is around Integra Centros and whether we could deploy that on client servers as opposed to within the cloud.
The answer is absolutely yes. So we believe that the future of our services for providing a fully wrapped for Integra is using the Microsoft cloud. It doesn't prevent you deploying this solution locally or indeed in an organizational cloud that you may have. We've got some of our customers who use government-provided clouds, and that will be something we'll continue to support in the medium and long term.
I think last question then, because I'm just conscious that we're running over slightly. So, last question, in practical terms, how will APIs help?
Well, depending on your organisation, it could help in many different ways. If you've got a lot of solutions or a lot of other functionality which currently interfaces Integra, but could benefit from moving from a batch-orientated interface to real-time interfacing or real interoperability, obviously that's an immediate benefit where you can inject transactions as they happen into Integra, and you see the benefit of that immediately. One of our other areas of thought in this space is to be able to harness the power of big data and analytics, to be able to use the data that you have with Integra today. Some of our customers are asking, with a world of information in there, we've got a huge amount of data, how can we best use that? How do we plug in engines, predictive analytics capability to be able to see at real time or on a day-to-day basis what's happening and how we can adapt our organisation to that. Plugging in those tools using the API suite that will be available will mean you open up that capability pretty much immediately, and you can start to adapt your organisation much more responsibly to those requests for change. It might be visible through the data that you're seeing and how the data is reflected in your Integra database today.
Damien. Okay, well look, thank you everybody for joining. If there are any further questions, then please do submit them via the email address that we've provided. We will fully respond to them. Of course, you can also reach out to your account managers. They will cover off anything else that you may have. Other than that, for those that will be attending the user group in November, we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for this session today.